Now that we understand why many men are choosing peace over relationships today, let's explore what men are actually seeking when they say they want peace. Because the word peace is often misunderstood. Peace does not mean silence. It does not mean emotional disconnection. It does not mean that men don't want intimacy, closeness, affection, or partnership. What men truly want is a relationship where they can breathe, a space where they don't have to constantly defend themselves or prove their value. Peace means emotional safety. Peace means respect. Peace means being able to speak without being attacked. Peace means disagreements without destruction. And most importantly, peace means a home that feels like a sanctuary, not a battlefield. Many men today are emotionally exhausted because they have lived a lifetime carrying burdens they never felt allowed to talk about. When a man says he wants peace, what he is really asking is, can I rest here? Can I be myself here? Will I be valued here? Will you still respect me even when I'm struggling? Can this relationship be a refuge instead of another source of stress? In a world where men are constantly expected to perform, achieve, provide, protect, and stay strong, relationships that feel like additional pressure become unbearable. A relationship should be the place where two people become stronger together, not more drained together. This idea is supported by Dr. Jordan Peterson, a clinical psychologist known for his work on personal responsibility and emotional dynamics in relationships. He explains that a healthy relationship is not about perfection, but about cooperation. It's about building something greater than what either person could build alone. But cooperation cannot exist where criticism replaces appreciation and where emotional combat replaces communication. Many men feel that relationships today have become competitions instead of partnerships. And when love turns into a scoreboard, peace disappears. Men also want clarity. They want direct and honest communication rather than emotional guessing games. They don't want to feel like they're constantly trying to decode hidden messages or interpret silence. Men prefer simple and clear expectations, something they can understand, work toward, and feel proud of achieving. When expectations are vague or constantly shifting, frustration builds and conflict becomes unavoidable. Psychologists often say that unmet expectations are the foundation of most relationship breakdowns, not lack of love. Another reason men are choosing peace is because many have experienced relationships where communication eventually turned into weaponized emotion. Arguments became personal attacks instead of problem solving. Mistakes were not forgiven but brought up repeatedly. Small conflicts became wars. And emotional vulnerability was met not with compassion, but with blame or mockery. When love becomes emotionally dangerous, the heart retreats to protect itself. And for many men, being single feels safer than being constantly wounded in the one place they expect comfort. Real-life stories reflect this reality everywhere. A man in his 70s once shared that after 28 years of marriage followed by divorce, he now prefers living alone because, in his words, every day feels peaceful. I can breathe. I'm not walking on eggshells, trying not to trigger an argument. I'd rather eat dinner alone in silence than sit at a table full of tension. That kind of emotional relief is powerful, and once someone experiences true peace, they are unwilling to return to chaos. In addition, many men feel that relationships today are too influenced by outside voices, friends, social media opinions, unrealistic standards, and cultural narratives that pit men and women against each other instead of supporting unity. Instead of working through issues privately and respectfully, conflicts become public conversations where people seek validation from outside sources instead of from within the relationship. That destroys trust, and without trust, love cannot survive. Another crucial factor is emotional reciprocity. Men want to give love, but they also want to receive love. They want appreciation, affection, and tenderness. They want to feel desired. They want someone who sees the effort they put in, not someone who focuses only on flaws. In Dr. Gary Chapman's famous book, The 5 Love Languages, he explains that people feel loved in different ways, through words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service, quality time, or gifts. Many men say that when they express love, it goes unnoticed, while their mistakes become magnified. Nothing empties the heart faster than feeling unseen. Modern men are choosing peace because they are realizing that emotional suffering does not prove strength. For decades, men were told that enduring pain silently made them honorable. But now, many are recognizing that protecting their mental health is not selfish, it is essential. Instead of sacrificing their happiness for the sake of keeping a relationship intact, they are walking away from situations that damage their spirit. And that choice is not cowardice, it is wisdom. For women listening, this message is not an accusation, it is an invitation. Because the truth is, women want peace too. Women want love that feels supportive rather than heavy, safe rather than uncertain, uplifting rather than exhausting. Many women are also choosing peace over relationships for the same reasons men are. The difference is that women speak about it openly, while men often suffer quietly. And when silent suffering reaches its limit, withdrawal becomes the only language left. So what can both men and women do to rebuild peaceful and loving relationships in a world where emotional burnout is so common? The first step is listening, not to respond, not to defend, but to understand. Most conflicts begin because one partner feels unseen or unheard. Simply saying, "I understand how you feel," can soften the hardest moment. Listening is the doorway to peace. The second step is appreciation. What you appreciate grows, what you ignore dies. A relationship cannot survive on criticism. A simple thank you, a gentle touch, a warm tone, a kind word, these are small acts that carry enormous power. The third step is healthy communication. Speaking honestly and respectfully, even when it's difficult, prevents small issues from becoming emotional explosions. If a couple learns to talk early, they will never need to fight later. The fourth step is choosing partnership over power. No relationship wins when one person loses. If you are keeping score, you are already losing the game. Love is not a battle to be won, it is a team effort to be nurtured. And finally, the most important step, prioritize peace over pride. Pride destroys connection because it refuses humility, apology, and compassion. Peace, on the other hand, builds a foundation where love can breathe. If men and women can learn to see each other not as opponents but as teammates, relationships will transform. Peace will return. Love will become safe again. So, does choosing peace mean giving up on relationships altogether? Absolutely not. It means choosing healthier relationships. It means creating environments where love thrives instead of suffocates. It means choosing emotional maturity over emotional chaos. And in truth, the men who walk away from relationships that harm them are not abandoning love. They are demanding a better version of it. At the end of the day, every human being, man or woman, wants the same thing, to love and be loved without losing themselves in the process. Peace is not the opposite of love. Peace is the foundation of love. Without peace, love cannot grow, intimacy cannot deepen, and trust cannot survive. So the question we should really ask is not, why are men choosing peace over relationships? But instead, how do we build relationships where peace and love coexist? The answer begins with understanding, compassion, respect, and emotional responsibility. If we can learn to give each other peace instead of pain, support instead of stress, encouragement instead of criticism, then relationships will once again become the most beautiful part of life, not the most exhausting. To every man who has chosen peace, and to every woman trying to understand him, know this: you are not alone. The world is changing and relationships must evolve with it. Peace is not running away. Peace is coming home. And real love, the kind that lasts, is always built on peace. Why more men are choosing peace over relationships today is a question that makes many people uncomfortable. Yet it's one that deserves honest and compassionate discussion. Because if we look around, we can clearly see that something significant has changed. Men who once spent their lives pursuing love, marriage, commitment, and companionship are now stepping back. They're withdrawing, not out of anger or spite, but out of exhaustion. They're tired of feeling unappreciated, unheard, and emotionally unsafe. They're tired of being told to man up and deal with it, while silently carrying burdens nobody sees. And millions of men around the world are quietly deciding that peace of mind is worth more than the stress and emotional pressure that often comes with modern relationships. Why is this happening? What shifted in relationships, expectations, and emotional dynamics? And is this trend a sign of failure? Or could it be a wake-up call to rebuild love in a healthier, more respectful, more peaceful way? Stay with me until the end, because the answer reveals much more than what appears on the surface, and whether you're a man or a woman, understanding this could completely reshape how you see relationships forever. The first thing we need to understand is that men have emotional needs too. That may sound obvious, but for generations, men have been raised to believe that their emotions are weaknesses rather than natural human experiences. Society has conditioned men to suppress, never express. A man is told to solve problems silently, never cry, never ask for help, and always be strong, even when he's breaking on the inside. But in relationships, that emotional silence becomes dangerous. A man who cannot speak his truth becomes a man who feels alone, even when he's living in the same home with his partner. And loneliness in a relationship is far more painful than loneliness outside it. Psychologist Dr. John Gray, author of the well-known book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, explains that men need respect, appreciation, and emotional safety just as deeply as women need love, connection, and security. When men feel constantly criticized, judged, or taken for granted, they start to shut down. They stop talking. They disconnect. Not because they don't care, but because silence becomes the only safe place left. In many of today's relationships, men feel that anything they say can and will be used against them later. So they choose quiet. And eventually they choose distance. Many men today describe relationships as emotionally expensive, something that demands more than they are able to give. I recently heard a story about a man in his late 60s who had been married twice. After years of fighting, tension, and unspoken resentment, he found himself alone again. When a friend asked if he was planning to date, he smiled gently and said, "I'm finally at peace. I wake up without a knot in my stomach. I go to sleep without being blamed for something. I would rather be alone than constantly defend myself." That sentence captures exactly why so many men are stepping back. Not because they don't want love, but because they don't want constant conflict. And conflict today looks very different than it did decades ago. In earlier generations, men and women depended on each other for survival. Marriage was a partnership built on teamwork, family values, and mutual responsibility. People stayed together because life made more sense together than apart. But modern culture has rewritten that structure. People now enter relationships expecting perfection, emotional healing, lifestyle fulfillment, instant happiness, and constant validation. When two imperfect people expect perfection from one another, disappointment becomes inevitable. Many men feel that no matter what they do, it's never enough. They work hard, provide, show up, and try their best. Yet they feel judged for what they lack, instead of appreciated for what they give. A common phrase men report hearing in their relationships is, "You should have known." But love is not mind reading, it's communication. And when communication turns into criticism rather than connection, peace disappears. Another major shift is the growing pressure for men to constantly prove their worth. In the past, being a good man meant protecting, providing, loving, and supporting a family. Today, many men feel they are evaluated like products, measured by salary, appearance, emotional perfection, and social performance. If a man is struggling, instead of support, he receives shame. Instead of being asked, "Are you okay?" he is told, "Do better." And nothing pushes a man away faster than feeling like his best will never be enough. There's a powerful quote by relationship therapist Esther Perel, who said, "The biggest problem in modern love is that we are asking one person to give us what an entire community once provided." Today, a partner is expected to be a best friend, therapist, financial partner, adventure partner, emotional support system, romantic partner, and social acceptance all in one. That pressure is crushing both men and women, but men are less likely to speak up about it. So they choose the simpler path, peace. Peace has become priceless. A peaceful home, a peaceful mind, a peaceful heart. Many men today say they don't want to spend the rest of their lives arguing about small things, walking on emotional eggshells, or feeling like they're in a constant competition instead of a loving partnership. They don't want to feel like the enemy in their own home. They want calm. They want teamwork. They want a soft place to land at the end of the day. When they don't find that, they exit, not because they failed, but because they finally chose themselves. It is important to say that this is not about blaming women. This is about understanding the emotional exhaustion men have carried silently for years. Women also feel tired, unheard, and unappreciated in many relationships. Everyone is hurting, but men are responding to that hurt differently now. Instead of staying and suffering quietly, they are choosing distance as protection. They aren't running away from love, they're running away from pain. And interestingly, many older men, particularly men over 60, are leading this movement. After decades of sacrifice, responsibility, and emotional endurance, they want peace more than anything else. When they've worked a lifetime, raised children, and survived stress after stress, they no longer feel willing to fight battles inside their own home. They say things like, "I just want harmony. I want someone who brings peace, not pressure. I don't want to spend my final years arguing." For these men, peace isn't a luxury, it is survival. Part of the reason men choose peace is because they feel safer alone than emotionally exposed. Many men describe relationships today as unpredictable. One misunderstanding can turn into days of silence, emotional punishment, or verbal attacks, and emotional safety is a basic human need. A man who doesn't feel safe will withdraw completely, just like any wounded creature retreats to recover. Another shift influencing this trend is financial independence. For the first time in history, a man does not need a relationship for survival, security, or social acceptance. He can live comfortably on his own, make his own choices, and design his life the way he wants. When men realize they can have stability and peace alone, they no longer tolerate relationships filled with emotional chaos. The rise of divorce, especially among people aged 50 and older, also shows that men and women are both choosing peace over social expectations. Many older men say that after divorce the first thing they felt wasn't sadness, it was relief. Relief from conflict,